for those of us that are in the car business or have been shopping for high-end luxury cars or even lower-end luxury cars, in the news lately, we've seen that Off Lease Only, was a major pre-owned dealer for years, and they kind of founded that luxury for less thing. They're mostly in Florida. I think they were operating in a few other states as well. And they always had hundreds of, newly off lease vehicles. And a lot of them were Mercedes Benz, BMW, Audi. That was kind of the world that they lived in. And a lot of times they had somewhat questionable histories. I mean, you never had odometer rollbacks or salvage title or anything like that, but it was always like maybe it had a couple accidents, maybe it had theft recovery. But they were able to purchase these cars from the leasing companies at a lower price because of that. So in the marketplace, they were kind of the loss leader, and you would always in the car business, consumers would use their cars as a comp against your car, and you'd have to pull, you'd be like, all right, let me pull. It's off lease only car. Let me pull the Carfax, and then my Carfax is clean, and this one's got quite the checkered history. But for the person that just wanted the BMW and wanted to be seen in the BMW, they didn't really care what the odometer said or what the Carfax said, because guess what? No one's checking the Carfax as you drive down the street. No one's checking the Carfax as you take your date out in the car. No one didn't seem to matter. Over the last few years, we've seen a lot of headwinds in the auto industry, and there's just not many cars coming off lease. If you think about it, in 2020, 2021 and 2022, the auto industry sold about 10 million less vehicles during that time. 10 million vehicles that are not being purchased, not being leased, not going into rental fleet. Those are the same vehicles that today in 2023 are not coming up on their 3-year or 2-year lease being due. What's happening is all of the dealers are sucking up these off-lease cars before their lease term is even over. So those cars, many of them are not hitting auction. And the ones that are hitting auction are in very bad shape and have very checkered past, even too checkered for a company like Off Lease Only. So since the pandemic, there's been a change in the way that the OEMs are selling their off-lease only vehicles. And the way that they're doing that is, so say BMW has BMW Group Direct. Any car that comes off lease that the dealer doesn't want to buy or passed up on, or maybe it needed a little extra work, so the dealer decided not to do it, ends up on BMW Group Direct, where any BMW dealer can bid on any single car there. And every day the prices go down a little bit if the car hasn't been purchased, or they go up a little bit depending upon the activity that they're seeing. It really depends the way the auction. Off Lease Only probably had the opportunity to purchase a lot of those vehicles in an open auction, and now it's a totally closed auction. So without a BMW franchise, they did not have access to those BMW off-lease vehicles. And every day there's a couple hundred more vehicles that gets loaded there. So it's like maybe engine noise, transmission issue, frame damage, like those kind of things. It's the same thing with Mercedes-Benz. So Mercedes-Benz used to run at Mannheim as well. And that, again, was the place to buy pre-owned Mercedes-Benz. Audi Direct is the same thing. Audi does the same thing. You have your own thing. It's all through Mannheim, but you have to be a BMW or Mercedes dealer. So anything that doesn't sell in 30 days, it ends up in a lane. So every once in a while, there's something that someone maybe missed, but generally it's like the wrong option package or the wrong color or something like that. We're starting to see a number of these pre-owned dealers that, were pretty successful in the late 2010s towards the pandemic. We're starting to see a lot of them either close up or retract or close some of their additional locations, or we're seeing some of them pick up a franchise as well as a way to try to back themselves. So it's kind of sad what happened to Off Lease Only, but they didn't have cars to purchase anymore. They didn't have cars to sell to people anymore. And I've got to imagine the real estate that their dealerships were on are probably worth a lot more at this time than trying to turn a profit selling cars that don't really exist anymore. So the interesting thing about off lease only is that they really weren't just off lease only. I mean, I remember purchasing cars at the auction and seeing the off lease only name pop up in the Give Me the VIN lane or the Robert Hollinshead lane or all kinds of different dealer lanes. And I think what was happening was originally they started, buying from all of these leasing companies and then realized there weren't enough cars for them to do that. And now they're competing with every other dealer who's essentially taken their model and tried to do the same thing all over the country and all of these other smaller dealerships. In fact, we have 2 dealerships that are very successful that have kind of the same mentality, that we can take cars from all of our OEMs as they're coming off lease. And if they have a little bit of a checkered history, we're able to put those cars at our own dealerships. So off lease only never got a chance at that. So I think from a competitive standpoint, even though they said they were off lease only, they buy cars off the street, they'd buy cars from auction like everybody else. And it just got to a point where I think their margins were so far compressed that it just didn't make sense anymore. And I think we're going to start seeing that in the industry more and more with some of these luxury and or high-end pre-owned only dealers. We're starting to see smaller dealers reach out to us to buy their entire inventory because they've just had enough. They're going to sell their real estate and they're getting out. It's really hard to operate as a pre-owned car dealer at the moment. I think there's a couple things going on here. So number one, there aren't as many cars available. It's just there aren't many cars coming off lease. There's not as many cars getting traded in. People are keeping their cars longer, really, because when you had a lease payment of $500 a month and you go back in to buy the same car 2 years newer and your lease payment is now $899 or $999 a month, I mean, you're essentially doubling what your payment is. And, with inflation and prices being up on everything, like that isn't really palatable for a lot of people. What a lot of consumers are doing is they're buying their leases out and they'd rather keep the car they know, and service revenue is up because of that. People are coming in, okay, well, I got to do the brakes and tires now because I'm at 35,000 miles. And normally I just turn my car in and that's the next, dealer's problem once my lease is over. From an interest rate perspective, if I'm an off lease only, and I don't have a Toyota Motor Credit behind me or a Maserati Capital or a BMW Capital behind me, I'm reliant on credit unions and other banks in my area or throughout the country, or consumers getting their own financing, which really cuts into my profit in the first place. So I think number one, they didn't have enough cars to sell. And number two, they didn't necessarily have a competitive advantage anymore because every other dealer is essentially doing what they were doing. And when it comes to going to finance that car, a 10% interest rate on a 3-year-old BMW hurts. But if I go on a 3-year-old certified BMW, I can get it for $399. So as that's BMW subventing the certified rate. So there was a time, if you were on Auto Tempest or Auto Trader or Cars.com, Car Gurus, any one of the big third-party websites, if you searched price low to high and you went across the entire country, off lease only always had the best deals, the lowest prices across the entire country. And if you've done that recently, you'll notice that that was not the case because, again, they're competing with everyone else.
I am away collecting my next bad automotive decision, but in my absence, I told the team from Glossit that we needed to bring back the free gloss. That was your favorite promotion a couple of years ago, and so the next 500 of you can get a free bottle of their amazing award-winning detail spray. All you have to do is pay the shipping and handling. So check it out now at the link in the description below. I love it. I love their DIY ceramic coating, but I use the detail sprays all the time. You'll love it. So check out the link now, get you some Glossit goodness, and thank them for their support of VINwiki.